Hello, welcome to Horizon Marmoris, session 16. We're trucking right along. During today, we don't have Emmerich with us, unfortunately, so it'll just be Hull and Wake on screen. We come back to our intrepid pirates, flush off a victory, sailing back towards Nassau with a whole other ship in tow, with plenty of goods aboard to be fenced off and be transformed into rum through that curious alchemy pirates are so good at. And we have the camera zoom in, I think, as the gangway is lowered onto the port in Nassau, and our pirates, get ready to walk down. Set the scene for me.
Wake is probably in no great hurry to get down the gangplank, not the least of which due to his many injuries that he has sustained and probably still not fully recovered from.
I'm also going to say that it's dusk.
So he might be, if anything, possibly even needing some assistance from, other members of the crew just to move. Because I had quite a lot of lethal damage.
I think you've probably healed one of those lethal damage, but you're still plenty battered and cut up. And, well, mostly pecked and scratched based on the nature of the injuries you sustained.
Mm-hmm. So he's going to be probably, pulling up behind with some crew supports, walking down the gangplank.
Okay, I think that probably the actual folk walking you down would be maybe Anselmo and the one of the younger crew members who spends most of his time up in the crow's nest, probably due to his teeny tiny size and lack of weight to hurl up there. Raoul, as always, is staying on the ship.
And with each step down the gangplank, Wake, starts to fade away little by little as like Pascal starts to return a little bit. His steps are maybe a bit less like sure, He's less I guess, he's attention kind of droops out of him a little bit. He gives in more to the injuries.
Okay. I think your sudden change in gait, you described it as gradual, but there's probably a noticeable moment where you're drooping like a bit more, and this like throws your companions off balance a little bit. There's a whoa. You make it down onto the deck. At this point, you're given a walking stick if you need it, and the crew has unloading to do as the other ship sails on into harbor as well. What is Hull doing as ship sails into harbor? Heading down to shore as well, or business on the ship while others are occupied?
I think Hull is still feeling this as a big victory, and is kind of really wanting to sort of bask in the drama of, one ship went out and two ships returned. So she's kind of she's disembarking and she's making kind of a big show of, kind of overseeing. Bringing this other ship in, and not kind of getting into the thick of it herself, but just kind of being that overseer.
Yeah, that sounds how I would feel also if I were bloodthirsty, megalomaniacal, and swooned at the same time.
That's life in the high seas.
Okay, cool. Yeah. As mentioned, it's dusk. Lanterns are starting to go up, fires being lit on the beaches, sort of throwing up pinpricks of and islands of light throughout the city. You hear the sounds of revelry just beginning as crates of rum barrels of rum, other containers containing rum are opened up throughout the taverns, the open air tents, the beach circles. As Hull is probably the more involved, you're there while Balthazar and Raoul are talking with the I guess the harbor master, such as he's called, of Nassau, taking tally of what they're bringing, what services they need, if they have any gratuities to pass along to make things go smoother, or folks to get in contact with. He's a short, swarthier man, a little bit of a limp to his walk, and from what you can tell, negotiation is not Balthazar's strong point, so Raoul is mostly taking the lead on it. Yeah, so what's the next order of business? As you all are aware, the initiation formally to the company is supposed to take place in a few days, like some narrative amount of time, and this additional ship that you brought back is certainly a sign of your ability to take what you want and live, take all that you that isn't nailed down, I suppose, as your understanding of the company's ethos goes. What is most important to do before then?
Well, as like our crew's still unloading, but is that going to be like finishing up probably within, before all of the rum gets drank?
Yes, probably. Though it is looking around. Wake, or I guess Pascal, can tell that people are impatient to get enjoy their land legs, enjoy their merriment, and whatever leave they get. So they're rushing it.
I think Pascal is going to want to help the crew kind of, this win wasn't just for us taking the ship, this was a win for the crew. And I think he's pretty keen on trying to get them, de-stressing after that, going to the underworld, and how much of a burden that might have been.
How does he go about, sort of, what rhetorical tacks does he take on that count?
I think that Pascal, now that they're no longer in a place with the, like, where the wizards are kind of going to be taking charge, is going to be moving, like, among the crew, more as like an equal, and trying to just kind of, I guess, like, ease them into a more festive mood, like get them from going impatient just to be done to being like excited to get drunk, basically, or whatever,
But not sort of reminding them of their exploits, rather sort of reminding them of the fun to come. Okay, cool. As you probably mentioned, a few bits here and there, like, you deserve this, this is well earned. Most people are excited to celebrate their being on land, feeling that they do deserve it, but you notice that the members of the crew who are the keener wit, or at least were known to be before this expedition, are reminded of what they might have done to deserve this, and some of them start to look a little confused, if you get the feeling that they're starting to try to remember what it was that they did down below, or experienced, or survived. But the unpacking goes well enough, and the rum gets cracked open.
Hull, on the other hand, and she's kind of conspicuously remaining Hull, is kind of seeking to mythologize and seeking to kind of partly to the crew and with the crew, but also to anybody else who is around and who will listen, turning it into this, grandiose tale, this story of La Rosa.
Full details of spell casting and all, and ghost seagulls and mysterious gates opening.
I think drawing on the more grandiose parts. So it's not that there were seagulls that attacked.
Don't mention
flailed around. It was that the revenants of hell itself descended on us, and we fought them off with steel and shot. And if you were there, you would kind of be able to map it to what happened, but she's very much taking a lot of artistic license here.
Yeah, but anyone listening just thinks, yep, another pirate who went to hell itself seeking treasure. Yep, sure.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Balthazar looks, tired after the business is concluded, and doesn't seem like he's in a mood to sort of join the rest of the crew. So he, looks about to see if anyone needs him, and then tells probably you and Raoul, or Hull, or probably tells Hull and Raoul, I'll be at the Crimson Cutlass if you need me. I need a bed after this. And he turns to walk off. You don't get the sense that he's sort of shunning you, or that he would not welcome company, but he wants to be anywhere but standing on this dock. And so question for the players. What mischief did Georgia get into while you were away?
I think she's been making friends, the wrong kind of friends.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Because there aren't a lot of children on Nassau, I'm assuming.
You'd be correct in that. Almost not in sort of Nassau proper, but as you go sort of further out past the limits of the city itself to the settlements where the previous residents of the area have by and large withdrawn to, there would be children out in their farmsteads out there. But in the Nassau itself, near the ports and in the taverns, almost no children.
I'm thinking like the kind of young people that would be on Nassau, your cabin boys, your kind of mid-teenagers kind of thing, more than like children, like small children. And
well, I mean, in this day and age, same deal.
Yeah, but yeah, the kind of teenager that would survive on Nassau, a real urchin, a real sort of troublemaker.
Yeah, and who might have tried to get Georgia to learn some particular new skills and hobbies, and charming, pockets, perhaps, or playing at that. Yeah, I think that Georgia has picked up a taste for throwing the bones. We'll say that. Make fun. She's getting quite good at it, actually, and not playing for much actual money right now because she doesn't have much money. But you know what they say about. I was going to make up a saying, but I am not feeling the creative juices right now. You get the feeling that she really, really likes the dice. And you don't know if this is an entirely new thing or a vestige from who she was prior to her old self being wiped away. But it's concerning on both counts, probably. Cool. I like that. dice fiend. All right. So, shall we skip forward to the big moment then? And perhaps have some dreams in the meanwhile?
Mm-hmm.
Can do dreams now, yeah.
Pascal would probably just spend the rest of the festivities, mingling with the crew and not maybe drinking as much as most of them, and trying to be like extra friendly towards anybody he notices, had a rough time with it from the last thing.
Okay. Give me a wits plus empathy roll, -4.
Could I use my specialization in personal troubles, empathy, for this?
Sure.
Okay. No successes.
So, you're doing a good job relieving people's troubles. You got stories to tell. You've got wise words to console and soothe. You've got rum to disperse. And as you keep an eye out for anyone who might be particularly sort of distracted, disturbed, a few people are, but nothing more than sort of the aftermath of sea legs and time at sea seems to be troubling anyone, which is a great source of relief to you, I'm sure.
With that done, then Pascal's at least assured he's done his due diligence and is ready to retire for the night with his wounds as well. As we skip ahead to the big thing.
Cool. So, days go by. You attend to the business of being ashore once again, of gaining your share of what the plunder from the raid was. A share to everyone, and 2 shares to the captain, the shipwright, and I think it's the quartermaster. Whatever. Most everyone gets a fair share, except a few people get an extra share. Your leads are chased down, contacts made. You start to prepare for the next voyage and the important task of unloading a lot of this coin that you've gathered. But in the fort, there is gathering and errands of a different sort. In those old sandstone walls on Nassau, more wheel workers are gathering than you have seen in one place pretty much ever. Ships are coming into port, an unusual number of them, with decorated captains coming ashore, and with more exotic treasures being unloaded. You see all manner of unusual dress among some of these new arrival. Skin tones and dress and cultural sort of trappings from as far away as the Indian subcontinent and even the Far East. A gathering of the Picaroons is being called. And the topic is partly you all. The evening of the 3rd day from your arrival back in Nassau, you are called to the cellar beneath the fort to formally sign yourselves to the Codex. There is torches lining the walls. The ceilings are relatively high down here in the vault, and a dozen-ish figures are here on this occasion. at the front of what looks to be sort of a lectern, a tall man with a long, braided brown beard stands before you, keen-eyed, speaking in a French accent. You're told by Moonlight above Pale Shoals, who greeted you when you arrived, that this is Eye of the Typhoon, the erstwhile leader currently of the Company of the Codex, the captain of captains, former currently, chosen from among his peers. Before him lies a thick-bound tome, which sits on this lectern, facing towards the crowd rather than towards him, and he speaks in booming voice. We gather here as Picaroons, joined together in common cause for many reasons: to smash the chains which bind humanity fast to the base of tyrannical pyramids, to find value in our company's hard works, and to claim the plumpest cuts which are our due in the here and now. No scraping or bowing or begging. We reject the hierarchies our enemies eagerly impose and cut off the hands tossing down their scraps as they please. We welcome 3 new Picaroons into our company. Green though they be, we call them our fellows in both spirit and deed. Already you've heard tales of treasures they've plucked from the mouths of our would-be tyrants, on the high seas and elsewhere. There's a little bit of chuckling at this. Freedom and discipline both are the twin symbols of our company, and it is upon this bedrock which we keep our fortress. Our principles: every mage a vote, every mage a voice. All sworn are equal under the Codex, no matter their origin. Our shared voice and individual sovereignty give us true freedom and are an arrow to the breast of tyrants. Take all you can, usurp nothing. To join the company is to join an order of fellows, sworn to aid and abet each other. We recognize no such rights for will workers outside the circle of the Picaroons. Their possessions are forfeit, their structures tainted by association with hierarchies, with ladder or pyramid both. Should you have the strength to take and topple them, they're yours. And lastly, the casting of magic before sleepers is the snap of a gun in the hold. Magic before those who yet sleep is a dangerous thing and risks calling our enemies to our doorsteps, human and otherwise. Use your magic as need be to discipline your ship and claim your lot, but take care lest you blow your powder kegs at high sea. And at this, you are all invited to sign and date into the front pages of the Codex itself in blood.
Wake will motion for Hull if she wants to go forward. Considering she's been taking charge this last big victory.
She nods magnanimously to Wake and steps forward to sign, nicking an arm to bring out some blood and signing.
Following her, and without much fanfare, Wake will do the same.
As you each do so, your peripheral mage sight catches scraps of gusting wind of sort of reflected far-off shores of sort of an unbounding of yourselves and a freeing of your capabilities. New symbolism is resonant with you now, not mechanically, but sort of the what were merely before words uttered in high speech or otherwise for you. These concepts of freedom and discipline are now closer to home than they had been before. We can talk about what that means in terms of actual yantras later, but Dalian also signs, or Mist also signs, and there's a round of cheers from the gathered company as you are greeted and inducted. Your shoulders are clapped, hands shaken, bandages offered, and with this, the celebration proceeds in the way that all pirate celebrations do, with a feast. So, what's the agenda for your characters during the feast, or goals rather? Networking, more carnal pleasures, information gathering. What's the MO?
Wake will be networking,
Mhm.
or at least trying to get an angle on, the movers and shakers, I guess, in the company.
Yeah, cool. Give me a presence plus socialize roll -3.
Okay. Presence plus socialize. Uh, is there a way I could do it more in like a politics way, or is this more of like a fluid group of mages? Like there's not as many like subgroupings.
I think politics also is probably fine just to learn who folks are. There's, again, a dozen-ish folks here. You could walk up and ask their names
Oh.
fairly easily, but you could also, yeah, sure, either.
I think I'll go for socialize then, if that's going to be more of an introduction.
Mm-hmm.
That's the wrong button. -3.
Yes.
Spend some willpower and. Oof.
Oof, not rolling so well. Yeah, you make your introductions going around.
Can I dramatically fail this one to
sure.
maybe,
You
get off on the
most-
wrong foot with one of them?
You most certainly can. Let's see. Oh, well, that's a cool die. I forgot I changed it to that. Okay, yeah, so I think that, you
Like,
may
I'll be
be...
remembered in a bad way, right?
Yeah, I think that, you maybe snub Moonlight Above Pale Shoals. You're going around, you're chatting with folks, you're making grand introductions, regaling each other with regaling them with your tales, bragging of your accomplishments and all that you've taken. And in the crux of it, you just sort of completely pass by Moonlight, despite sort of already having known her? Was it? Known them and gotten some aid from them. You just sort of completely ignore them. On accident, I'm sure, but they'll remember this. And you get a beat. Okay, cool. But some of the relevant movers and shakers that you learn, Eye of the Typhoon, obviously, is a Frenchman, formerly, or isn't Obrimos, whatever the heck that is. It's described to you as a mage who, speaks in cycles, in holistic order, in sort of terms of grand patterns, rather than, and you don't know this, but eliding sort of the normal hierarchy and sort of hierarchical aspects of order as others might understand it when comprehending the Obrimos path. And formerly a member of the European Diamond Order, of a faction which you don't quite catch the name of. Crimson Gull, obviously there, drinking, merry, laughing, and happy to claim some amount of credit for your success thus far as your introduction to the society. Moonlight, snubbed, smoldering in the corner by Wake at least. Hall can decide whether she extends an olive branch or ends up talking to Moonlight. Another sort of mage that everyone seems to be eager to talk to is one named Gora, is what he's going by. Tall, sort of darker skinned. You get introduces themselves as being from Goa, which Wake at least probably knows is on the Indian subcontinent, on the western coast of it, in the middle. and assorted various others who are sort of less on the tip of folks' tongues as the people to know.
We'll just continue making the rounds then, and chatting, keeping the mood light, sharing some of our own escapades.
I think Mist leaves at some point relatively early in the proceedings after the signing. Again, less enthused about the company than everyone else, though did sign into the book and claims to be tired. What is Hull using this opportunity to do during the feast?
So, using kind of Red Gull's kind of bragging about them and sort of taking some credit, Hull uses that as kind of a little bit of leverage to try and find out more information about this whoever it might be that has given them this invitation, and what sort of knowledge Red Gull or anybody else there might have.
Sure. How much information are you sharing about what the weird company has gone through so far? Sort of totally open with all the details of the who and what and where and how, or sort of eliding the details?
I think she's going to be eliding because this isn't something that's been agreed with the others. And there isn't really an opportunity to sort of huddle up and say, should we tell them about the seer that invited us to go and have a chat?
Sure.
She's framing it as like, we've been fucking with this guy and we've learned these things.
Okay.
We want to know more about this potential problem.
Okay. I assume you share sort of the name, at least, that the letter was signed by, or?
Yeah, I think she could, if pressed on that, she could play it off as like, oh yeah, we found it in George's mind, or in in some of the effects on the ship that we stole. Stuff.
Okay. So go ahead and give me a presence plus subterfuge roll to only give out the details that you think will get you the information you need. -2.
I'm going to spend a willpower. How much willpower did we get back?
That's a good question. I think that you were probably at sea for 3 days. We're just going to say, obviously, well, actually the Caribbean's not that big. So yeah, we'll say you were asleep for 3 days, so you can have back 3 willpower apiece. Cool. Yeah, so the details which you judge are the absolute necessary to get the information that you want. More about this jerk who's you perceive to have been fucking with you is that you let slip that you were asked to go to Havana and that the letter was signed Steward. This is a little vague for some folks, as well as, they're in a mood to party, but between sort of being in a good mood, Gora actually has this tidbit for you. After a moment of sort of thinking, he replies that Cuba is a stronghold of the hegemony, a ministry of seers of the throne who work to empower the ability of these kings, queens, and nobles to oppress those around them. and obviously dropping lots of capitalized words, as if you should know this already. Some new ones already, probably for you, such as ministry, hegemony, etc. And
Hole loves capitalized words.
And says that one particular one that comes to mind is Steward of the Far Shining City. Right bastard she is. She especially has much influence wherever Spanish ships and guns, or Spanish ships sail and Spanish boots march.
Any weaknesses, easy ways to kill her? No.
I mean, he is happy to talk about killing seers. It's one of his favorite pastimes, in fact. Which, I don't know, which is slightly different than the talk of, pillage and plunder and, taking what's your due in freedom. Gora is very upfront about the fact that, he loves killing shit wizards. And the gist is that she is arrogant. And arrogant can be a strength. Arrogance can be a great weakness. If you can find a chink in that smug armor, then the arrogant fighter is less likely to see it coming.
Cool. And that name again was Steward of the Shining City?
Steward of the far-off Shining City. I think, or do you sort of, you were all about sort of spreading the story of La Rosa and your exploits out at sea and in the underworld before? Do you do sort of more of the same, sharing what you went through in the underworld down below and what you saw? Or asking questions about anything that you saw or experienced in order to learn more about them? Either of you?
I think this is something we also probably would have decided on while coming back, like this part specifically. Because we wanted to, kind of do something impressive, right?
Yeah, and I think Hull is definitely eager to kind of talk them up, but is taking a different tack than she would simply at port, and in the drinking houses. These are clearly more impressive people who have seen more things. So it's not quite as tall tales, and it is, a bit truer to what actually happened, but it's still trying to paint them in an impressive light.
Okay. Alright, so you brag about, entering the underworld. That's probably the most straightforward fact. There's some, nodding at your bravery at this, as well as your foolhardiness from some. Yeah, I guess if there are specific details that you don't want to mention, that would be a good time to bring them up.
That's a good question. I think, the seagulls thing isn't that embarrassing. I don't think Hull would want to drop that. She'd probably downplay how much of an obstacle it was, but don't think we want to drop it entirely.
While talking of the events, absolutely, we shouldn't reveal how kind of at odds we were at times.
Oh, 100% not. Yeah, after the company's discussion, in what we agreed to do and everything, that's just not even coming up in conversation.
But other than that, I think it's just share everything else.
Okay, cool. So you tell the tale. You share sort of more of the technical, for lack of a better word, details than you would in the drinking houses. More of the nitty gritty of, the item that, the key that allowed you to open the gate, about sort of the river cities. And the first question that sort of comes to everyone's lips when hearing you recount this tale is, what was a Spanish ship doing entering, or with a key to enter the underworld, and an unawakened one at that? Well, they seemed to know where they were going, what they were down there to do, or like how to make their way down there. What business did they have down there prior, aside from fleeing from you? Because clearly this is something they'd done before. Do you have any speculations?
Well, I think she kind of intimates to them that the captain of the ship, who was apparently 5 people, or however many people it was ashore, and this didn't seem to be a sort of raiding or pillaging or anything like that. And as far as we could tell, there wasn't any. They weren't on a conflict footing, so it didn't seem like, the lost souls down there were attacking them necessarily. So maybe they had some sort of arrangement or something.
When you say, yeah, go ahead.
She's looking to, presumably having identified those mages who are familiar with the underworld and how things work down there. She's kind of looking to them like, is that something they could do? Like, what is?
Yeah, so there are a couple of mages who are more familiar with sort of the other side among company, listing at the corner of your sort of circle, because obviously, this is a tale that relates to at least their knowledge, if not their interests. And the gist you get is that, yeah, it's possible. The wretched dead, I think is the phrase. The wretched dead below cling to their existence, despite, the underworld itself ever degrading them. They need constant sustenance in order to keep themselves up, and the living can bring any number of resources down below, including material objects that could be destroyed to create ghostly objects, which provide them the essence they need to stay unalive. They could also bring, treasures that would more directly allow them to rise to the top of that trash heap below by besting their fellows or taking control, demanding tithes. There's plenty, which I think at this point there's a look at Gora, who's listening intently. Hegemony could offer them, because it sounds like when you say that the captain was 5 people, Gora at that point says, hive-souled.
And that's where a little bit of John's kind of enthusiasm shines through, and this kind of horrifying notion sparks curiosity.
Yeah, and someone provides an explanation. It's 5 people who are one, exactly as you said. They look alike, think alike, are connected to each other, and they are choice servants of the hegemony given to them by their iron god. And this sort of sends a titter that you can perceive in waves coming out from your little circle of conversation, that, hegemony is up to something in the underworld. And you get the feeling that, gears are starting to turn about a plan, a counterattack, whatever have you.
Interesting.
Definitely something to follow up on.
Okay, cool. Were there any other... Yeah, so the mention of Hive Soul comes out if you ask for an explanation. Sort of, Gora isn't interested in, providing or like understanding the details of how they work, only that they move almost like a perfect pack. He's a theorist, so in many of the metaphors that he speaks in probably resonate at least somewhat with Hall, though he, you get the sense, is a little bit more of an expert in the life side of the path than the more sort of ephemeral side. But he's
how
not
did you
interested
spell?
in sort of the metaphysics of sort of how it is that they are one. What was that, Scout?
How did you spell his shadow name?
Like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I think I know what that means. That means like meat, doesn't it?
It means horse or steed.
Interesting.
It could also mean meat. That would be a funny double entendre. But yeah, so if you kill one of them, they all die, which is I think more Gora's sort of the practical interest that he has in this sort of phenomenon. But yeah, so during the rest of sort of this scene, is there any, or what's the one other thing, if anything, that each of your characters wants to do? Some sort of impression to leave with someone, some question to be answered, or some other sort of advantage to be gained.
I think Hull wants to have wants to be in on this kind of plan that seems to be forming to strike out at the Seers. Just to kind of be in the loop. So if that means kind of registering an interest, but she wants to be in on this thing that people seem to have going on between each other.
Okay. Sort of, I envisioned that as you try and, making your way into a circle where the shoulders might be pretty close, sort of making your voice heard when others are talking, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and just kind of voicing intent to do the Seer's harm.
Sure. Give me a presence plus socialize roll. -1. Right, sounds good. Yeah, I think that you successfully expressed the fact that you would also like to join this ruining Seer's Days party, or hobby, rather, and you are openly invited into the circles of people making plans to do exactly that. The tidbit that you sort of get out of listening on these conversations is that they're worried that the Seers are, or that hegemony is laying some groundwork to be able to sort of circumvent, the company's undisputed command over the high seas, or to be able to move materiel for some sort of military operation without being noticed by either, other mundane kings or queenships or the company itself. If they have been able to do that for this underworld city in the Silver Coast, I think I refer to it as, then where else are there badger tunnels that they've started to dig? And you get assurances that if there's news, she's more than welcome to inquire about it later. And what about Wake?
I think Wake's gonna be interested in kind of maybe like m- reaching out to Eye of the Typhoon, or like making it known that our cabal is willing to like offer assistance if it's ever needed. Partially because from the short talk that we had, it appears that this is a mage who kind of also sees things in a completely different way than what our cabal is normally used to. Like we focused a lot on trying to share our perspectives and views, and this is definitely a fresh one.
Mhm. Okay, cool. So you sort of find him with while refilling his flagon. You make conversation. He's gregarious, boisterous. Almost more so than Crimson Gall even. Very open and honest eyes, and is happy to take your assurance of assistance as an expression of newfound kinship with you and your fellow Picaroons. Give me a uh, composure and resolve roll. Or no, sorry, a composure and empathy roll. -3.
Okay, I will be spending my last willpower on this.
Okay, cool. Um, yeah, you get the feeling that this amount of sort of openness doesn't come naturally to him, almost as if he's fighting old instincts the entire time that he's openly sharing information with you. He's not lying, as far as you can tell, but he's certainly putting more effort into it than someone who's naturally this gregarious would be. But you do get the sort of cliff notes of his path. Of he sees the world as the turning mandalas of the winds above and the currents below, of cyclical movements that all create a whole, a perfect whole of sort of weather systems, of sort of ecosystems, of order moving and turning the world. And he talks a lot in terms of lightning metaphors, which you don't even need a roll to pick that up. Yeah. You, anything specific that you wanted to get out of it, or
Mostly just like a sort of like signposting that Wake at least would be interested like in offering potential help if this dude needs it at a point in the future, or at least working together maybe on some sort of common goal if their goals ever align.
Well, that's the nature of the fellowship that you find yourself in now. He doesn't say one for all and all for one, because that hasn't been written yet, I don't think. Or maybe it has. But, this is a fellowship that you are part of now. Not merely a sort of mercenary, not merely a hobbyist clique, I suppose he probably puts it. We are here, just as on a ship, every person must, know their role from the deckhand to the boatswain. We now are a crew of this order, and we all have to, help each other and do the work in order for the ship to be successful.
And Wake's gonna say, then the wind, then may the wind be at our backs.
Flagons clink, and then the party sort of at some point winds down, whether that be later the night or late into the morning. And with that, we will take our break. I'll see you all back here in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Cool. See you in a minute.
All right, back from our break. Before the break, we had a party, and as all parties go, information was shared, stories were told, drinks were had, reputations were altered. It's the next day. What are we looking to do sort of in Nassau, if anything, before next voyage? I know that you'd had your eye on preparing for sort of this altercation that you're anticipating with Steward of the far-off Shining City. Any preparations or research?
Preparations and research for about the
About
seers?
anything.
About anything.
Just whatever your goals are for next setting sail.
We're
We're in the base building phase.
Wake would want to follow up on more like scraps of knowledge about the underworld. I was going to ask some of the mages potentially, but it seems they didn't seem to have any more idea on who these sleepers were, like, compared to us. So perhaps it's time to start looking in, mortal occult circles.
If you were asking sort of specific questions about how the underworld works, then I'm
More
sure
just kind of like dragging a net through, wider circles, because it appears that the company didn't have any more knowledge on how these sleepers got access to the underworld.
I mean, if you tell them that, so they don't necessarily know how the sleepers got into the underworld. You, as characters who were there and used sort of the same means, can surmise that maybe there was some key given to them by a magus. But you're right, you don't know, especially since you didn't find any such item on the ship. So, you could start to do some research then. How are you going about that? What sort of avenues are you following in order to try to, magpie up this knowledge?
Well, sailors in general are a very suspicious lot.
And superstitious.
So I think Wake would just be kind of, just throwing a huge net and trying to ferry out if there's any common things that keep repeating, trying to figure out facts from fiction, which may not be easy with his knowledge of the occult as of now. So it might be more...
But you're talking to people. Okay.
Talking to people, gathering knowledge, maybe the actual, like, sorting of it or going over it will happen later, but for now it's just like, let's see what people have run into, what people are saying, because Pascal Wake does also, is also sailor superstitious.
Sure. Give me a manipulation and you're mostly trying to investigation works. Minus 2, because as you said, they are suspicious and superstitious.
One success.
Nice, and that's enough. So, you start to ask around. You find that for most of, especially the European sailors, talking about death at sea is a fearful thing. No one, people cross themselves, ward themselves against the evil eye when it comes to talking about sort of ghosts or anything of the sort. Talking to sort of those who are more steeped in occult traditions, whether that be sort of more obscure or persecuted European-style occult traditions, or those who might have been more familiar with Obeah, for example, if for the native Carib people, would have stories to tell about sort of about the dead, accessing sort of the land of the dead, and particular ceremonies that can be done to assist the dead in moving on to the next world, or to nourish or celebrate the dead and thereby nourish them. You don't get specifics on how these are done, but you do get the feeling that or get the sense that non-awakened people have been able to affect the dead and the world of the dead, it purportedly in these traditions through actions, ceremonies, rites. You haven't seen any of them, so you don't quite understand sort of the symbolism inherent or what supernatural power, if any, could be inherent in these acts, but you've got a lead on something you can investigate more further if you found someone, who had real knowledge. Like, an actual Obeah person or someone from a different occult tradition.
All right. That's good for me.
Okay. So what is the next goal when we set sail? What are we looking to accomplish? Steal a flagship, kill a seer.
Well, in terms of meeting Steward, like when was that expected to be? Because my impression was
at some point. I don't recall if there was an exact date. There probably wouldn't have been, but it was an open invitation with the expectation that it be at some point. So not like on Tuesday the 17th of 19 or 1714 or whatever. So much as it would be greatly appreciated if you would come as available within the next few months or whatever. We can, it'll happen in narrative time.
Okay.
Unless you,
because I was under the impression
entirely.
See, I don't want to do that because I think it would be interesting for these characters to meet and talk to a seer. I don't know if we would necessarily want to then show up and try and murder everybody there, because that sounds like a bigger deal, and we're going in a bit not knowing exactly what their capabilities are and everything. So maybe it's something to build up to, and maybe the next goal should be a shorter term thing, like stealing some more ships, causing a bit more trouble.
Okay. Cool. I do sort of have an idea of what will happen when you next set sail, whenever you're ready to do so, and if there's anything that needed to happen ashore, we can just retcon it. If anyone doesn't object, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was about to say I'm probably gonna spend some XP after this session, so maybe just like narratively, we spent a little extra time on shore leave this time before heading out.
On what?
On what? I was buying the buying the mystery cult for the company and maybe upping that even to like 2, maybe some dots in a cult.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. Just some areas at which Pascal's trying to like actively improve his knowledge in the magical society, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds perfectly good to me. You are, all in a position where now you can spend XP to buy dots in Mystery Cult Initiation, Company of the Codex. Cool. So, you find yourselves. Oh yeah, we were gonna dream, weren't we? And
yes.
So, I think that the night after the party is a perfect time to have sort of relevant dreams. Yeah. That is another P word, but not the one I was thinking of. It'll come to me when I'm falling asleep, though.
Portentous.
Yes, that's the word. Portentous dreams. So, Paul sleeps at some point then. what does she dream of?
So she's been experimenting with astral stuff. She's been experimenting with dreaming and things like that. And so she understands how easy it is for her to control her dreams, which is to say, kind of lucid dreaming. And she's going into it consciously thinking, I want to explore she's going into it thinking, I want to explore the my dreams and try and find answers to the question of like what is shining steward of the far of shining city about, are we going to have an opportunity to attack them or something like that. She's going into it consciously with that kind of focus.
Okay.
But she notes that subconsciously she starts to treat that as like, what is kind of my role here, and what am I kind of doing? What am I pushing the sleepers towards? What am I pushing the crew towards? And what am I pushing Balthazar towards?
Okay. So before I get into what the dreams actually are, what is, the question? It's a yes or no question about the topic at hand. And then we can sort of follow along sort of that path of imagery.
Just remind myself what the question can be.
It is a yes or no question about the topic at hand. The topic being something she has a basic understanding of.
I think the question kind of becomes, am I going to get Balthazar killed?
Okay, so has Hull been to Havana before? Or John, rather?
Yeah, why not?
Sure, okay. So Hull's recollection of Havana is, relatively accurate in dream logic. Hull sees the winding streets, the tall cathedral bells, and is walking surrounded by people. And eventually, sort of this surface that she's walking across turns into a ship deck that is still embedded in the middle of Havana. The ship, sort of sailing through the city, with buildings sort of being pushed aside, almost like water or flotsam that the ship is sailing through. There are people around her, various indistinct figures and distinct figures, some members of the crew, some shadowy people, and Balthazar sort of is at the prow of the ship, standing there, Hull watching from a distance from behind Balthazar, where she's been standing for sort of this whole time, and let's see. Hull sees a ballista on a distant tower, sort of aiming an enormous harpoon at the ship, and the harpoon is launched. It's flying through the air, and Hull knows that it's flying exactly towards Balthazar. But before the ballista bolt, harpoon, tree trunk, strikes the ship, the dream sort of, dissolves. So in mechanical terms, this is a maybe. Not a yes, not a definite yes, not a definite no, but they're, a maybe. You maybe get Balthazar killed.
So, she kind of, she almost plays this over and over, and she's mulling it over and she's meditating on it, and like in the way that you do when you meditate, you sort of you spot things about your thinking, and you sort of notice things about yourself. And she realizes that she's looking at this in two different ways. On the one hand, she is looking at this as a kind of quite ruthlessly pragmatic mage who understands the bigger picture, who believes themselves to be correct and not completely dispassionate, but willing to roll the dice. And on the other hand, he's looking at it as someone who is deeply emotionally invested in this crew and in Balthazar and in this sort of figure that inspired him to sort of take up a life of piracy, and who he's really latched onto. And she kind of in the dream, she looks over at herself, and he is kind of standing there next to her, and she looks at John, looking at Balthazar, and she takes out a knife and goes for him.
Goes for Balthazar or goes for John? If you were saying something, I didn't hear you.
No, she goes for him.
Okay. Yeah, so I think how does it go from there? You tell me.
So he's looking at himself, and this absolute kind of wall between him and what he wants, and he sees that that murderous intent, basically. Like, he is something to be cut out, and in kind of his small perspective on the world, he understands, and he takes the knife and he accepts it, and it's bloody, and he feels that pain in a way that she doesn't, and she cuts and she cuts this out of her.
Right, and I think that you wake up probably, in a cold sweat, with, some, I don't know if you were sleeping in a bed or in a hammock or something, but your blanket sort of tossed about, perhaps scratched even, as if by, nails or claws of some sort, in a way that, you don't normally see from human nails. Perhaps even scratches on your own skin, but nothing, mechanical in terms of damage. And with a very different view of yourself and others.
Would you say that resolves the swooned and bloodthirsty conditions?
Sure. Okay, to clarify, you went for, in your dream, this image of Balthazar with the knife?
No. She was attacking John.
Okay, cool. That's what I thought. I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
In fact, I'll do you one better. She cuts out John's heart. And he stands there and watches her do it.
Bloody. Okay. So, with new light, Paul seems perhaps obviously or perhaps unobviously a bit different at breakfast the next morning, or whenever she next speaks with Dalian and Pascal. Whereas Pascal, Wake became more of Pascal when, moving among the crew, moving among the Society of Nassau. Hall seems to have moved in the entirely different direction, but is that's where my thought ends. Cool. So, with newfound purpose, the crew gets ready to go. Every member of La Rosa who was around to get their shares is very happy to have their pockets more filled with coin. Most of the members of La Rosa are happy to go on for another expedition, including the named characters like Raoul and Anselmo and Balthazar, and whoever else I remember to give a name to. A few of the other ones decide to stay ashore for a turn and need to be replaced. So a few new faces on board. And you head off. It is... what's the month again? It is June. Yeah, I think probably a while's passed, so it's like mid-June. At some point during this journey, the crew gets to talking. They get to reminiscing, boisterous talk over, the water barrel, over the rum barrel. Perhaps flush off of a successful, completely bloodless raid in which the gutless merchants just gave up their entire stock after, waving your sabers and firing a few clouds of gunpowder shot. Or, firing off a couple of balls, rattling your sabers, and getting treasure for nothing more than a leer and an insult. Everyone's in good spirits, and people are reminiscing about their conquests, various ships you've taken, and various ships that you chased, especially that one that you chased down below. The new members of the crew who joined are, at turns dismissive and curious about this boastful tale about the land of the dead itself. And as you all start to hear the crew talk with each other about it, you can tell that something feels a little off. Your peripheral mage sight isn't, seeing or catching or hearing anything that seems like an active supernatural effect, but one crew member says something like, when the fiends below came when I was scarred by what came, no, it was, it was an accident, we came to shore, and someone else chimes in to say, no, it was, it was rocks falling from the ceiling, or someone else saying, no, it was, someone, or, the water was bad, or the rum was bad, and we started seeing Pascal everywhere across the... It must have been, bad water, and as sort of this collective attempt to remember sort of the quiescence that they had experienced below sort of overpowers each individual's inclination to forget what happened, and a weird energy builds up. You can tell that, people are becoming increasingly agitated and sort of confused on the ship around you, as for lack of a less anachronistic phrase, the vibes start feeling real bad. What do you do? Sort of seeing this go down and, feeling these entirely mundane at the moment misgivings. And notably, the new members of the crew are not experiencing, obviously, quiescence because they weren't there.
So there. Yeah, I think Hull wants to discuss this with the other members of the company, and
Same.
yeah, like
Step into a side area, perhaps. Yeah.
yeah, and like, I'm not really sure what the solution would be here, because it's kind of like a don't think about. I guess we need some way to like compartmentalize it, and yeah, I'm not sure. Because like the ideal would be to have them stop obsessing over it and poking at those memories and stuff, because it's not doing them any good. But how do you get them to do that?
You could maybe throw around some like authority, but that won't really solve the underlying vibes. So I don't know.
I think having like my urge is to have like an actual sort of one story that everyone's sticking to.
Maybe clear it up then. Make a, tell our own version of the story.
Yeah, or yeah, I think our own version of the story that we insist on, so that there isn't this like kind of, oh no, it was this actually. This is how I remember it, and I was like, actually no, it was like this, and everybody setting each other off. Just having it as like, as this is the story and this is how it went, and getting Balthazar to back us up on it, and getting Raoul to back us up of it, because I'm presuming Raoul isn't affected.
That is a correct assumption. But as you're discussing this and trying to come up with a plan, your peripheral mage sight catches something just out of the edge of your fingertips, an itching, a tingling, and go ahead and roll the eyeball button for me. Cool. So, Wake, as you both sort of look around immediately, as it isn't often that your peripheral mage sight goes out in the middle of the open sea without one of you being responsible for it. The crew's distress at this point seems, during the time that you've turned your back, almost fevered. Eyes are bright and shining. Mouths are frothing a little bit, and you see what looks like sort of a distortion flit from behind the water bottle to the foremast, and then a blur of motion, or rather, Wake sees this blur of motion. Hall is looking around trying to figure out if anything is amiss aside from the crew members, but doesn't catch this particular detail.
Wake will flip on space sight then and try to get a judge of distance if it was something moving fast.
Okay. Turning on active space sight, you look about and you find very little space sight gives you for free sort of a perfect judge of distance. You can tell that from here to where you saw the flashes of movement, the blur, the brief distortion is a precise number of meters, which I don't exactly know because I haven't memorized the length of La Rosa. But you know that it. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, Wake will indicate in its direction to Hull. Something over there. You felt that, right? And kind of like immediately like point towards where this was, and then you continue. Sorry.
Notably, a space, nothing jumps out to your sight immediately as a space-related, mystery immediately.
Okay. And it was just, you said like a distortion
Yes.
thing? Okay. Is it
Not-
still there in any capacity, or was it just something had happened there?
Your space enhanced sight doesn't sort of catch anything or turn up anything as far as you can tell right now. It was almost like it was sort of a manifestation rather than sort of an entity moving through space quickly.
Wake's gonna say, you don't think we brought something back with us?
Could be anything. Did I get which arcanum it was with my keen periphery?
That's a good question. Give me a Gnosis roll.
Nope.
Okay. You get well, actually, roll again because ties reroll. Okay. You do not, which is a very unusual experience for Hull, attuned as her peripheral is to sort of the fabric of the phenomenal as it exists. Sort of having, I imagine that instead of being flavored by sort of whatever arcanum is causing the effect the way her peripheral mage sight usually is, this is just confusion. It might be sort of scraps of multiple things, or scraps of nothing, or distinct absence of arcanum, all of them at once, perhaps.
Yeah, like kind of a confusion of stuff where it's like in the way that it would just jump out to her clearly before. It's like, oh well, there was something, but I didn't. Huh?
And meanwhile, sort of no one's come to blows yet. No one's had a heart attack yet, but clearly, sort of whatever is fueling this confusion is also causing mundane alarm to those who are not affected by sort of quiescence or these memories of the things that had traumatized them before, namely Orwell, the new crew members who have sort of backed away from the other crew members, sort of frightened.
Oh, so this is affecting the crew as well?
In the sense that this is not quiescence as you have seen it before. It very much seems like quiescence, but not sort of... It's more energetic, I guess is the phrase.
I'm really sorry. I feel like I've missed something here. We had our peripheral sight go off.
Okay, so your peripheral sight went off. This manifestation appeared, manifested, and the quiescence the crew members was experiencing, whether your mages know that term or not, intensified. And this intensification took the form of, frothing, of, shouting, of shoving, of tears, of general breakdown, and mental distress. Does that clear it up?
Yeah, no, that's clear now. Hull's going to bring up Prime Sight. Let's see what the hell's going on with
Sure.
that.
So, Prime Sight reveals things resonant with Prime's purviews, obviously. Yantra is the standard, but namely with truth. And looking about, you can see sort of these flashes of untruth. Normally, I'm going to say that, if Hull has looked at people actively experiencing, quiescence, the sleeping curse before, it's looked like sort of a glimmer of unknowing, of ignorance, sort of hiding within, the path, in their bodies, maybe coursing through the same way that blood or resonance, resonance doesn't flow through people. Maybe it does. Who knows? Anyway, so what she is seeing now is sort of almost an active flare, like a fire fed more fuel, and with a billows sort of being blown into it by something. And that something is a diffuse, for lack of a better word, entity, which has its sort of sparkling, anti-bright tendrils sort of emanating from the far side of the ship.
And with my spirit sight, are there kind of manifestation conditions that it's using here?
They are. It is what's the phrase I'm looking for? I think it's probably like either fettered or sort of, we'll say fettered. And the crew is open parentheses, missing no scrambled characters and glitching out Pokemon Red on Game Boy Color version, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and notably it is still ephemeral, though with Prime Sight I'm going to say you can't tell what twilight it exists in, just that it is in a twilight.
So I think I can still interact directly with, as I think I did with the ghosts in the first instance, interact with the resonant and open conditions. I think, does it need open for fettering?
I think so.
So I'm going to cast Opener of the Way, but closing it, to shift the open condition to just resonant.
Okay. Roll your spell. I think for scale, the deck of the ship is, the size of, the crew are spread out across, half of the deck of the ship. The crew are the ones who are open, so you can cast either on, subjects or on area.
I think the area makes sense. I'll do a bit of reach for that. I'll pop it up to a scene. And I'm also gonna be using my oh bugger. Do I use the do I cancel out the paradox, or do I bump up my dice?
It's a good question.
I think bump up dice.
I think you're right. Yeah, I'm going to use.
Oh, I also will say that you probably had time to gain, mostly up to topped up for mana while you were ashore, / while you were at sea, etc., etc.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna use the shadow name, Ziantra, because she is, the opener and closer of the way. She is the guardian between. And that's at advanced scale for a scene.
And let me, is that withstood by something?
No, it's because it's interacting with the condition itself. So, like, this is the nice thing. Spirit gets one thing other than just mucking around with spirits. It gets to really interact with the mechanics of ephemeral existence. And I'm gonna contain the paradox. And that's one success. It's all you need.
Nice. So, very abruptly, sort of, how does Hall envision sort of the stripping or the suppression of this openness?
She feels it like a kind of great leviathan in the water feels like some irritation along its flank. She can't see what it is. She doesn't know exactly what this thing is, but it's causing irritation, and as if she was just kind of scraping it along something, or just kind of coursing through the water and shaking it off. She kind of sighs through whatever is attaching it here and pushes it away.
So with this spell, the open condition for all these crew members has been shunted back to merely resonant. Sort of those the billows are no longer able to reach the bottom of the fire of the candle, and so they gutter down to their normal levels, not going out, but smoldering like a candle, no longer like a bonfire. And there is sort of an immediate condensing of this ephemeral entity from out of the heads of all the crew members gathered. Pascal doesn't perceive this with currently just space sight up, but sort of feels or notices with his mundane vision through his hallucinations almost immediately as the frothing calms, the distress is abated somewhat, before anyone came to blows. Is there something Pascal does immediately?
The distortion has kind of like gone away then.
So after that first noticing, it did not sort of manifest in your mundanely accessible vision, or in your space enhanced vision.
I think following his connections of his supernal world, he's gonna add mind sight as he looks at the crew, trying to see if it's abated, but is there any still lingering effects affecting their minds?
As you add, as you, I guess, add mind into your sight, this probably takes the form of a different lens of these waves of the reflections that Pascal normally sees, of sort of, I guess, observers. Pascal sees sort of the after effects of this same sort of snaking that Hall had seen, albeit with a different aesthetic character. Maybe even sort of smells the scent of something sort of unwholesome sneaking in through under a door crack, and perceives an entity that looks like a scream floating in his mind sight amidst the crew. Not like a mouth. It doesn't look like, teeth or lips, and it doesn't sound like noise to you, but it is a scream hovering in, mental frequency somehow, despite being, having none of the qualities of sound or physicality, which create a scream. And it is hideous. It makes your head hurt. Your nose actually starts to bleed, which Hull sees. And with its, sort of direct, fettered, access to the minds of these crew members, shunted down, it, soundlessly screams and is gone. And the vibes become less rancid almost immediately.
I think that Wake, shutting off the sight, kind of backing away from getting, blasted by that, we'll start to move into action, trying to at least stick to the plan that Hull had put earlier, of trying to spread their own story.
Sure. I'm not gonna make you roll for it at this juncture, but what are the sort of big outlines of the official version?
I think we're gonna keep the stealing a ship, but it wasn't in. It was in metaphorical hell, perhaps. Maybe a dangerous storm had picked up, but we dove in bravely anyway, or something.
Yeah.
How does that sound?
Sounds good. And while you're busy out here lying to everyone, I think while Pascal is, or Pascal/Wake is doing the record correcting, Raoul approaches Hull and would like to know, what was that?
Hull is a little bit shaken, actually. And she tries to give the same spiel that she gave to Balthazar, which was, you're asking these questions, but understand that, once you're in this world, you're in this world, kind of thing. And there's certain things you're going to know and you're not going to be able to unknow. But it's delivered like a bit more uncertainty, and almost a bit more of a warning than a disclaimer.
And I think that Raoul himself is also, very shaken, not on the same sort of metaphysical level that you are from what you witnessed, but from the very mundane concerns about almost, losing control of the ship and being afraid of bodily violence and watching, other people be in distress. And so he displays, whereas Balthazar was very solemn, like, yes, take me into, this, make me a part of what you do. Raoul hits page end to scroll to the bottom of the EULA and hits accept. It says, yes, yes, go on, go on.
Yeah, so I feel like this might have been something that the company themselves had already discussed in terms of Raoul, because Hull did learn last time that he's a sleepwalker, and
yeah, that's
so.
reasonable.
I wanted to bring it up earlier, but I was planning on maybe giving Raoul more of an in to the comings and goings, or now that we're not in as much of a high stakes situation, to kind of be like, all right, more transparency, but I wanted to clear it with the others first.
Yeah, I mean, I could see us coming to the agreement that, like, let's see how Raoul does. If Raoul wants to approach us, then we can kind of see how things go and keep each other abreast.
I'm interested in maybe, I think Raoul might be a little bit more like less trustworthy of us, so I wanted to give like a good faith, all right, if you've got any questions, here's a good time that we can talk, right? We don't have to deal with seagulls or ghosts.
That's fair. So I think, like, bearing that in mind, Hull is like, okay, there are things, there are invisible things. There are entities of all sorts. You might have heard stories of them. You might have heard all sorts of tales. You might know people who have seen them themselves. One of them just tried to attack us, and we saw it off.
I think that he accepts this explanation because you haven't given a whole lot to disagree with, right? Like, there was a thing he couldn't see. It there was a thing he couldn't see, and then suddenly it stopped. And so he clearly believes you, but is dissatisfied with the extent of the scraps you've tossed his way in terms of information. And he says curtly back to you, yes, I can see that I didn't see whatever it was. What I want to know is, how do I stop this from happening again? How do I protect my crew from whatever that was? How do I keep things in order?
Well, you see, Raoul, the vibes were rancid. She's obviously not going to say exactly that, but I think he's clearly action oriented. So she is, in this state, I think she's willing to share a theory, which is that it clearly seemed to be linked to the crew's distress and was kind of feeding on that. She understands resonance. She understands kind of the interplay of entities and the things that they cause and the things that cause them. So I think she's framing it in that regard. And she says to him, she thinks that it was preying on the crew's confusion, the crew's sort of distress, some of the lingering trauma from our stint below. So what you can do is help Pascal to set the record straight, which is, again, not a phrase that she would use, but to set the story straight, to have us all singing from the same song sheet as to what happened, and to help calm everybody down.
So Raoul sort of probably heard Pascal going about telling this story, and it's definitely different from what he recalls, but seeing sort of what he just saw and hearing your explanation, he says, "Very well, if you think that telling lies will help keep the ship safe, then I will trust that is true for now." And he goes about to help Pascal in reinforcing the lie.
You know,
I think at that, before he goes, she says to him, as you put it, there are those of us who can see, and there are those of us who can't see. And what you can't see becomes all the much more frightening, and all the things in your imagination start, leaping out of the dark. We want to reduce that distress. They can't see. You see a little better, and we can see. And by working together, we can make sure this all goes smoothly.
There's wordless acknowledgement of a character, and things gradually return to normal. The story is spread, both, the record is corrected, as you put it, for both the crew members who were there and experienced, this witnessing of supernal magic, those who witnessed Quiescence, and the ones who weren't there are informed that, everyone else was just sort of talking shit. Really, it was just a big storm. Like, don't listen to Anselmo when he's in his cups. Obviously, they didn't go to literal hell. And, the message goes over pretty well with everyone involved. Pascal, doesn't need to roll for it because everyone involved, quiescent or not, wants to believe the lie. And so they do. Okay. So we weren't sailing to Cuba. We were sailing out to go do some general pirating. So I don't have anything else prepared for today. It's a little bit early, but we're also, down a person. So I think
and you had a bit of a headache. So.
Yeah. So I think that we can call it there. Thanks for watching, everyone. Sorry it's a little shorter than usual, and catch you next time.